Hello, this is going to be the reading of the first two paragraphs of the article, The Green Fields of the Mind. And I selected this article because I happen to think that it's one of the most beautiful articles there is. And it's a funny thing for me to say that because um, I'm not really up on baseball at all. This is an article that's about baseball. Um, and in fact, a lot of the article I don't understand in the sense of how the game of baseball is working. Certainly, I understand like the other words in the article and such, but um, this is a what I see as a beautiful metaphor or a comparison um, of something in the literal world, in this case, baseball, to something that's a little bit harder to grasp, which is how the mind works and how humans sort of need what humans need for their brains, right? Like what comforts people's minds. So we're going to look at these first couple of paragraphs. The title here is a little bit different from the other titles we've seen so far. So this title is not something that is literal, right? The essay "My Name" was pretty obvious what that article was going to be about. It was going to be about a name, right? This is called The Green Fields of the Mind. So when you look at that title, you might be like, okay, green fields. What is that? Is that sporting fields? Is that like fields on a farm? Um, what is the field there, right? And then of the mind. So then you're like, okay, are there actual green fields in the mind? This is a title, right? This title right here is something that you may have a little bit of trouble brainstorming about. And I think it's enough in that instance just to be like intrigued. Like, okay, this is going to be an article that's a little bit harder. I guarantee you um, this will be a harder article, maybe a little bit easier for you if you are already a fan of baseball. But we're going to take it slow, right? So the pre-reading was to listen to the author read it. So hopefully you absorbed some of the article that way. And we'll look at the first two paragraphs together. The annotation that you're going to do for this article is a visual annotation. So a visual annotation simply means doodling, drawing in the margins, or finding pictures to represent what's going on in the essay. And doing this can really help you to envision what the author is talking about, especially if there's a lot of specific information in the piece. So a lot of times people say, well, like, I'm really not a good reader. And oftentimes what that means, it may mean you haven't had practice with reading, but oftentimes it means you're not spending enough time engaging with the reading. And hopefully the strategies that we're working on, the annotation strategies, will really help you to slow down and look carefully at the paragraphs in the articles that you read during your college experience and beyond. So the green fields of the mind, let's get started. I'm going to read the first two paragraphs aloud, and then I'm going to show you how to do a visual annotation on the computer if you choose to do it that way. You certainly can do it on paper and then upload as a JPEG if that works out for you, or you can do it just like I show you. So we're going to read the first two paragraphs aloud. The green fields of the mind. It breaks your heart. It is designed to break your heart. The game begins in the spring when everything else begins again, and it blossoms in the summer, filling the afternoons and evenings. And then, as soon as the chill rains come, it stops and leaves you to face the fall alone. You can count on it, rely on it to buffer the passage of time, to keep the memory of sunshine and high skies alive. And then, just when the days are all twilight, when you need it most, it stops. Today, October 2nd, a Sunday of rain and broken branches and leaf-clogged drains and slick streets, it stopped and summer was gone. Okay. So that's really talking about the game of baseball. And we'll learn later that it's baseball, but I'm telling you it's baseball. You know that perhaps from looking at the first video. And you learn not just about the game, but what the author feels the game does, right? The game is somehow heartbreaking, so it's really hard to handle, right? Because, and he says it's because you can rely on it. It's really regular. It's like a ritual. It happens at this time of season in a very particular way, and then when it's fall, it doesn't exist anymore, okay? And he says that through a whole bunch of visuals. So let's look at the second paragraph, and then we'll do our visual annotation of the first paragraph. And in the second paragraph, he is going to talk about a particular moment in baseball, okay? And we know that because in the first sentence he says, somehow the summer seemed to slip by faster this time. So this time means he's honing in on a very specific moment that he wants to talk about. Maybe it wasn't this summer, but all the summers that in this my 40th summer slipped by so fast. There comes a time when every summer will have something of autumn about it. Whatever the reason, it seemed to me that I was investing more and more in baseball, making the game do more of the work that keeps time fat and slow and lazy. Just to pause there. He's basically spending a lot of time on baseball and allowing the other aspects of his life to fade away. Okay, that's with this fat and slow and lazy, just that singular focus on baseball. I was counting on the game's deep patterns, 3 strikes, 3 outs, 3 times 3 innings, and its deepest impulse to go out and back, to leave and to return home, to set the order of the day, and to organize the daylight. I wrote a few things this last summer, this summer that did not last. Nothing grand, but some things, and yet the work was just camouflage. The real activity was done with the radio, not the all-seeing, all-falsifying television, and was the playing of the game in the only place it will last, the enclosed green field of the mind. There, in that warm, bright place, what the old poet called mutability does not so quickly come. So what he's talking about is that baseball can be preserved in the brain, or at least the experience and ritual of baseball is something that can be held on to in the brain. But we can kind of see that he has a kind of longing tone in this piece, right? He's sad about baseball as much as he loves it. Okay, so you're going to be working on a visual annotation for some aspect of this piece. The idea is to read it fully and then do a visual annotation, okay? So how do you do that? All right, so what you can do is to open a new Word document, okay? And then you're simply going to look at whatever paragraph you want to annotate. Okay, so I'm looking for at least one paragraph of visual annotation. And you can do, so the first one says it breaks your heart. So what would you do? Okay, so you could get the shapes here, right? Basic shapes. We've got a heart, perhaps. Okay, what else do we have here? Basic shapes again. Maybe this is going to represent breaking the heart. Baseball breaks your heart. And then what do we say? The game begins in spring. So we're gonna say maybe in the spring where it's a little bit sunnier, right? And it blossoms into the summer. Yeah, maybe we're gonna do like an arrow, right? So spring into summer. Really what this is doing is slowing you down and like making you look at each of the images. Filling the afternoons, and then the chill rains come. Okay, so we obviously don't have a Microsoft Word rain. So in that case, what we can do is we can go into Google and we can go to Google Image. And we can find a picture of rain, right? We can copy the image. And we'll just paste that really wherever we want to. Yeah, we can put it here, that's fine. And so then you have a sort of visual representation of some parts of this paragraph. You would continue. You might want to make it a little bit more linear than this, but really it is just about breaking down that paragraph into its visual parts and slowing down as you read it. Trying to find those images will help you to slow down. So again, you're going to do this, you'll save it and upload it as your visual annotation. If you'd prefer to doodle in the margins, draw an arrow and then, draw some rain or a sun, you can absolutely do it that way. So I hope that you enjoy this article. If you don't enjoy this article, that's fine too. It's a challenging article. And as always, if you have any questions, please let me know.